Hello and welcome back to the Faith and Culture Show. I'm Catherine Camp, your hostess for the show. And this is where we dig in deeply to all sorts of topics happening in our culture, around us, and sometimes around the world. And we do this to educate ourselves so that we can have conversations that count, conversations with an eternal perspective with those around us. Today, I have a very unique guest. Her name is Ying Chen. She is an orchestra conductor who has been with Shen Performing Arts from the very beginning. She's going to give us some insights and personal stories about how Shen started as an all-volunteer group of first-generation immigrants, and through hard work, faith, and a relentless dedication to a grand vision to revive a culture almost destroyed in communist China, how it created the fastest growing performing arts company in American history. And I really hope that everyone goes and maybe watches one of their performances, goes to one of their performances when they start back up this next season. Ying and her family and community at Shen have faced incredible evils of the world, but have overcome these threats and hardships with resilience and faith, and never letting anyone and others, even the largest totalitarian regime on earth, take away their hope. And I find that speaking with Ying Chen is very timely, especially here in America, as we have, I feel, just dodged a bullet of full-on Marxism. But Ying can fill us in more and tell us about what she does. Thank you for joining us, Ying. I'm very excited. I've never spoken to an orchestra conductor before. I love symphony music. I love the performing arts. So you start wherever you'd like to start. Tell us about, your connection. We know as an orchestra conductor, how were you there from the very beginning?
Sure. Maybe I should first explain just a little bit for those who are not familiar with Shen what Shen Performing Arts is. Yes. So Shen Performing Arts is the world's premier classical dance and music company. And we are really quite an American story, actually. It was established in 2006, mainly by first-generation immigrants. And from then until today, we have grown from one performing troupe to 8 that are performing around the world each year with a new program, and in front of over 1 million people around the world at 5 continents. So we are very proud of what we have accomplished, but it hasn't been an easy journey. And I think it's important to know that we're actually a faith-based group. We are all practitioners of Buddhist-based spiritual practice called Falun Dafa. And because in China, since the communist regime took over in 1949, they have systematically tried to eradicate traditional culture. So when Falun Gong became too popular in China, we faced persecution, and it was actually under very dire and urgent circumstance that we created Shen in 2006. So my story and our company story basically revolve around this.
What a wonderful way to send that message to people. I love that it all started to give people hope in the first place. For those people, because in the United States, not a lot of us are familiar with it's Falun Gong. Is that the correct way?
And also known as Falun Dafa. Yes.
Falun Dafa. Mm-hmm. Okay. Tell us what that stands for in the community. When I had another member of your of Shen on, he was telling us a little bit about it and Tai Chi, and but I want people to understand what your faith is based on.
Sure. So, for thousands of years, Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism, these are known to be the pillars, the three pillars of Chinese civilization. They're basically integrated into people's way of life and thinking and culture. And basically, it's an integral part of Chinese civilization for thousands of years. But when the communist regime took over, they started to systematically eradicate all these spiritual beliefs so that they can instill Marxism into this nation of people. So for decades, they've been doing this through one political campaign after another. By the time I grew up, I basically went through elementary school in China without knowing anything about my heritage or let alone, spiritual beliefs. So I was very much out of touch. My whole generation, I would say, that grew up in China was totally lost touch with our heritage, our spiritual heritage and our cultural, our authentic cultural heritage. Falun Gong is actually also known as Falun Dafa. It actually emerged as one of the, it emerged as a form of Qigong. Qigong is like energy practices. They became very popular in the 1970s and then 80s and then 90s. If you've seen people done Tai Chi exercises in the park, those slow moving exercises, actually, Qigong is, those are some forms of Qigong. And for Falun Dafa, we have 4 gentle exercises that are done standing and then 1 meditation. And people can just learn it from the park, and it's always taught for free. And the health benefits have been really tremendous. And because of that, and also because of the, spiritual teachings, so many people in China resonated with it. Falun Dafa was introduced actually in the 1990s, when after the Qigong, after many people started to do Qigong just to, get exercises, to get some healthy exercises done for their health. But at that time, people didn't really dare in communist China to talk about anything spiritual. Everything has to be like very, you have to be very indirect about it. You cannot really talk about it. But with Falun Dafa, because it's based in Buddhist practices, so a lot of things you just have to, because it's not these for the exercises and the mind and body. It's actually one thing. We believe that mind affects the body and vice versa. So it's really a holistic practice. So when Falun Gong became so popular that the government, initially in China, the Chinese government was always, of course, keeping an eye on anything that is growing popular. And Falun Gong was receiving awards and praises, and you can see newspaper articles and media that report on it, all positive things. But when it got to 1990s, when the practice became too large, the government estimated that there were about 70 to 100 million people practicing Falun Gong, and that even far exceeded the communist membership in China. At the time, I think it was like 55 million. So the government felt threatened. What if, I don't care what you're doing, if you have this many people doing something, it just makes them very uncomfortable and feel threatened. And not to mention the fact that many communist members, including high-ranking officials, were practicing Falun Gong. So in July of 1999, they started to ban Falun Gong and and since then they have escalated it. Now it's 25 years, 26 years now.
Yeah, from 1999.
Right. So in the last 26 years, we have millions of people who have been impacted, have been jailed or tortured or even killed. And people in China cannot practice openly anymore. They can do it at home themselves, but they cannot. If the local police know that anybody is still practicing, they'll just come to your home and take you away, which happened to my family and many, many other families that we're aware of.
Just because they were practicing a type of exercise that is calming?
Yes. Exercise, well, there are some spiritual elements in it, but everything is about moral living. It's about self-improvement. it's really apolitical. It's very benign. But because the government has said that you cannot practice it in China, they will do whatever it takes to crush you if you do otherwise.
Wow, that's very oppressive. So, do you mind? I did want to ask you about, you said your age group grew up very out of touch with your history. What happened?
Well, basically, when we were, when I was going to school, I was in China during my elementary school and high school years. We learned nothing about our real cultural heritage, and everything was, it's all communist agenda in our education. We learn more about politics, what the communist government wants and their ideology than what people in China originally believe. And I don't know if you heard the saying that the culture is the soul of a nation. And if people loses their real culture, and think about Chinese culture for thousands of years, for us to lose that, it's like losing our real identity. And yeah, it's just really sad what's been happening in China. But I didn't realize that until I come to the United States. And I didn't realize that until they started to attack Falun Gong, and which made me want to learn more about my culture. Mm-hmm. And the more I study it, the more I realize, wow, all these years, this is what they've been doing. And it's really not just Falun Gong. We've learned that the Uyghur groups, Christians, Tibetan Buddhists, when we were in China, we had no idea that they had been persecuted all these years as well. But now in the States that we have free press, we're learning that for many years they have been under very brutal persecution, and any religions that are not recognized or co-opt by the government in China, you are a cult. You are evil religion. You are they can do whatever they want to you, and and all this media in China is state controlled. So you just hear one voice that attack and smear these groups however they want.
Do you? Did you come to college here?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so then at that point you were able to really go to a library and actually pull books off of shelves and find out about your culture. Is that what you did, or did you go to the internet? How did that work?
Well, actually, here in this country, there's an abundance of resources you can go to, right? Documentaries and books and newspapers and anything that you want to research, you can look into it. And also, I think it's actually because of my practice of Falun Gong that actually put me more in touch with my authentic culture, because it's rooted in our culture. And I never realized that there's so much depth and wisdom in our culture. And I started to feel more proud about my culture. When I first came to this country, actually, because I was so out of touch with my culture, I just really wanted to be westernized, because I love this country. I think the people here are very, very kind and generous. And so I really love it here, but it's just sad that I lost touch of, what my culture is. Now I can come to appreciate both cultures and utilize some of the strength that I can draw from in my original, what flows in my blood.
Right, exactly. So do you, because obviously there was a beautiful thriving culture in China for over 1,000 years, 2,000 years. And it's because it's a very old culture. And then suddenly it got infiltrated. Is that what happened by dictators, or what did you learn?
Well, basically, in 1949, after the Communist Party took over, and especially during the Cultural Revolution, that's when they really try to do away with whatever it was still remaining intellectually and in the religious circles, anything that is still spiritual, they wanted to root it out and just erase it. And people thought, I think in my generation and even maybe my parents, my parents' generation, they still remember a little bit of the past, but nobody dared to think about it or talk about it because it's considered superstition and stupid and outdated. So that's why if you go to China today, there are very few people who have a religious faith or even feel comfortable talking about it, other than those who go to maybe a very small number of churches or monasteries that are controlled by the government. You still have that facade, just like you go to China for tour as a tourist, you will still see some temples, but it's empty inside, and definitely the meaning of what they used to represent and their purposes, that is all lost.
Wow. Well, have you seen, so you've been here since 2000, in the early 2000s or 1999?
I came to this country in 1988.
Okay.
Right before the Tiananmen massacre, actually, a year before the Tiananmen massacre happened. And I remember when we saw on TV what was happening, the massacre as it was unfolding, we all had tears. We just couldn't believe what that government was willing to do to university students, mainly in China, using violence to just kill so many people. And but guess what? People in China did not see any of that. They woke up, just the government's propaganda just told them that, oh, there were some riots and they were trying to, there were some riots and it was crushed. Nobody, there, of course, people in Beijing, my parents and my brother were still in Beijing at that time. They heard those gunshots. They heard, they saw the bullets, the damage created by the bullets on many, many different walls and buildings. But you couldn't really talk about it in China. And every time we have relatives or friends that come out of China and we show the news of Tiananmen massacre, they're shocked. They've never seen it. They were told a completely different story.
Wow. Wow. I just see so many parallel similarities here than what has happened or visually happened here in the United States for the last 10, 15 years, especially in the 2020. I don't know, how did you feel when you saw these people, I believe, that were brainwashed, tearing down our historical statues and making excuses for doing it and then being allowed to do it? How did that make you feel?
I think it's very sad that we don't, instead of cherishing and learning our real culture and learning from the culture, that we just disregard them and put some labels on them and on what that culture was and what happened in history. There's so much that we can learn from history. And in terms of China, I think a lot of people in the West, they think that the government of China, the Chinese regime, Chinese Communist Party,
right,
equals the Chinese people. They're not. They're totally different.
Yeah.
The government does not represent the people. But I feel bad that the people for all these years, they just don't have the access to information like we do outside of that China, outside of the border there. And even today, China has the biggest internet police in the world. If you type in Tiananmen Square, Tiananmen Massacre, or Falun Gong, or anything spiritual, actually, you get a knock on the door pretty quickly. So,
wow.
yeah, that still happens today. You don't hear about it You don't read about it, but that is very much a reality in China still. Even
Wow.
so, I cannot even call my relatives and talk about whatever I want because their phones are tapped. And for that reason, I haven't been able to visit China since, I think the last time I was there was 1997.
That must be sad for you.
Of course, when my
Yeah.
grandmother passed away, I wasn't able to travel back there because it would only bring them more trouble, unfortunately. We have
Right.
today, well, we'll talk about that later, but today at Shenyun, we have 90-some people who have either experienced the persecution or have family members who have experienced the persecution. And some of them have family members in China today who are still being threatened, even jailed, because of how outspoken they are here in this country against the communist regime.
So even if you speak out here, there's a threat?
Yes. They have,
Is it to you personally in the United States, or do they threaten your families that are still in China?
they do both. I don't have any direct family in China anymore. I'm very fortunate that my parents and my brother managed to leave China after the persecution of Falun Gong started in 1999. But we have many friends who have family in China who are still being monitored and threatened. So we have to, some of the artists have to use aliases when they perform and not instead of their real name, just so that their families are not so affected in China.
So there's just no escaping all of their regime. That's really evil.
I know that's what I think people call it transnational repression these days. And yeah, I can tell you more about that later on.
Yes. Yeah. So yes, and we know that there were some police stations run by the CCP here in the United States, and I just felt like these people can never be free. They're constantly watched, no matter where in the world that they live. This is spreading around the world, and I was not. I mean, obviously, I was aware of the CCP and aware of the oppression and the threats all the time, and how they treat their citizens. But I didn't realize the danger that the whole world is in because of their aspirations of pretty much taking over the world, until I sat in a breakout session a couple of years ago of this group, the new Federation, or the new Federal State of China. I don't know if you've heard of that group, but they are young people, and they are making a lot of noise and raising a lot of awareness. And of course, they too, even though they're here in the United States, they have been, like, one of the young men has been put in jail just for speaking up. And you think he didn't do anything wrong. It's free speech here. We can talk about anything. But that's what's happening. And so it's very real, and it's horrible. So I had in my notes that you all sent me that your family has been tortured. Do you want to tell us about that, or we don't have to?
No, it's okay.
Okay.
I want to raise awareness of what's happening, because it's not just about my family, but also about many people who are still going through this in China as we speak. So in the 1990s, actually it was in 1994, when my brother, he just graduated from college. He was in China, and somebody gave him a book about Falun Gong, our spiritual practice. But at that time, he was the first one who encountered it, and he learned the exercises. And as soon as he did the exercises, he felt a lot of energy going through his body, and he was, whoa, this is so amazing. So he introduced it to my parents, and they were also in Beijing at the time. And my parents started to practice it. And it's just been a miracle to all of us. To give you a couple of examples. So not only did they get healthier, their joint problems went away. My father's, started to have better appetite and gained a little bit weight. He was really, really skinny. But most importantly, he actually quit smoking after 30-some years of addiction. My mother tried everything possible to get him to stop, but it just wasn't possible. But one day when he went to see it's like a seminar of Falun Gong, actually on TV, where the teacher of Falun Gong was talking about quitting smoking because it's not good for you and it's inconsistent with our spiritual goals, because we want to purify ourselves and not just mind and body. And he said in that teaching that if you want to give up smoking, it will be easy for you. And when my father heard that, he didn't really pay that much attention to it. But after he left that place and go home, he from that time he never wanted to smoke cigarette anymore. He just didn't have the urge to. And when somebody offered him cigarette, it just tasted funny. So that was like really, really, miraculous for all of us.
Oh, interesting.
I know. And what's more interesting is his story is not alone. I know later on we learned that many other people who started to practice Falun Gong experienced exactly the same thing. It was just really interesting. And also my parents' relationship got better. Our family got more harmonious. They stopped quarreling. That was also, really interesting. But for my mother, she was really drawn to the core principles of Falun Gong, Falun Dafa, which is 真善人, which is translated as being true and genuine. That's the Zhen part. And Shen is being good and compassionate and kind. And Ren is actually a very, very rich word that includes meanings like resilience and patience and endurance and self-discipline. Just all these values and all these virtues are what we try to, cultivate in our day-to-day life, in our daily lives. And because in the past, people used to do these spiritual practices in mountains, in secluded mountains and monasteries, so that they're less distracted from the world, right?
Okay.
So with our practice, it's meant to be practiced in the normal real world. However, deep inside, we understand and we always, self-reflect. Am I in line with these core values and principles? Because we believe that they represent the nature of the universe. And then when we align ourselves to that, we ascend or elevate ourselves to higher spiritual realms. So that's, I guess, the best I can explain in general terms, I guess, about what our practice is about. But it has done real miracles and has real impact on so many people that I know. So I think this thing is really powerful. And for me as well, I was in the States already, but I was working a lot and under a lot of stress. But after I practiced Falun Dafa, today too, I can always give, meditating is very calming, right? It helps you being very centered. And I feel like I can put myself in that meditative state anytime I want. I don't need to go to a vacation to get that. But I can, be very centered and feel like a lot of serenity inside. So it's hard to express, but it's just been really wonderful for all of us. So anyway, everything was well until 1999. Suddenly the government decided to ban the practice. I remember that night I read some news online. Here I was in the US. So I called my mom and told her that, I heard that suddenly all over China on the same day, at the same time, they started to arrest people who practice Falun Gong across the nation. So I called my mom and my mom said, maybe that's why your brother's not home yet. and it
Oh,
was already evening at that time. It turned out that my brother went to the park to do the exercises in the morning as usual. But on his way home, he was supposed to go to work. He was stopped and taken into the local police station. They didn't even allow him to call his workplace or our home. He was there for a whole day, and they basically interrogated him and asked him about, as if he's engaged in some terrible scheme or some kind of, I don't know what they were thinking.
right, right.
Right. So they did allow him to come home that evening, but since that day, every now and then they would suddenly take him to the police station again and just continue to pressure him to stop practicing Falun Gong. But then later on, a couple of months later, my brother decided to go to, there's an appeals bureau in Beijing. It's supposed to be the only place, an official channel for citizens to voice concerns. But just for going there, my brother was thrown into a labor camp. Actually, it was a detention center near their apartment in Beijing for 30 days. But despite that, my parents decided to also visit the appeals bureau a couple months after that, knowing full well they could face the same fate. But
Sure.
they felt that this practice has benefited us. I just want to share my real story, and maybe the government just doesn't know the real story. So my parents went, same thing. They were thrown into the detention center, each for 30 days separately under harsh conditions. But I think because of their faith, they actually managed to go through with, I guess, knowing that they were doing the right thing. They had no regret, and they just find comfort in that they did what they were supposed to do. They have their faith to sustain them. After they went home one night, suddenly their apartment in Beijing was stormed. There was a group of policemen came, searched their house, the apartment for any Falun Gong related material, and then took my mother and my brother away. My mother was again detained for 30 days. My brother was sent to a labor camp, and he endured. He was nearly killed multiple times in the labor camp. As soon as you arrived at the labor camp, actually it was first another detention center. They use electric batons to make you lower your head. You're not supposed to ever lift up your head even. So anything they didn't like, they use an electric baton to force you to comply. And my brother said that usually at those labor camp, with one electric baton, you just wave it in front of somebody and they'd be like, okay, whatever you want me to say, I'll do whatever you want me to do. But with practitioners of Falun Dafa, we are people of faith. We want to hold on to our faith. And because of that, they very often use multiple electric batons on somebody to bend their will, to make them give up their faith. My brother said that one time there was a friend of his. They actually, the guards at the detention center stripped him naked and then pour cold water all over his body. And then they used 13 electric batons on him at the same time to force him to give up his belief. And he was trying to recite one of our teacher's poems to help himself stay strong. And the whole 2 or 3 floors in that building could hear him. So it was just unbelievable agony that he was going through. My brother also went through a lot of different types of tortures. He was very often he was deprived of sleep. And one time he was not allowed to sleep for 15 straight days. And as soon as he tried to close his eyes a little bit, somebody would hit him or hit him with a physically or with an electric baton.
Wow.
And then one time the guards had several other inmates attack him, physically assault him, and they were beating him and kicking him as he was falling to the floor. They were stepping on him, and to the point his face was disfigured. And under that condition, they then bound him. They first bounded his legs and feet together, and then his arms behind his back. And then they taped his mouth so that he could not even shout for help. And in fact, he couldn't even breathe. And then they bent his neck to his legs so that like he's folding him up. And he could hardly breathe. He was mustering the last ounce of strength he had just to take in a little bit of air to stay alive.
Wow.
And then they put him under a very low bed. It was very low so that his back was up against the bed. And then they had somebody press down the bed to crush him. My brother at the time felt that his back was already broken, and thankfully he survived it. And for the next 2 weeks he couldn't stand up, and he couldn't use any strength of his back. There was another practitioner of Falun Gong who went through the same torture, and unfortunately he was permanently paralyzed from that. So, but these are just, these are still nothing compared to some of the other practitioners went through and are still going through in China.
This is all done, it sounds to me, to make people submit and to not question anything that the CCP is doing. And earlier you mentioned their Marxist agenda, which of course is the entry into a culture, the socialism, the Marxism, and then it turns into tyrannical dictatorship. And that's exactly what, to me, you're describing. Do you see that?
Yes, absolutely.
That way?
Yeah. But in the case of China, you just there's such a high cost of even just try to hold on to a faith, a faith of your choice. They just won't allow that, because for the Communist Party, mind control is the biggest thing. That's how they can sustain their power. Actually, in China, because of what they've done there for these decades, nobody believes in anything anymore. They just believe in making money and just doing whatever is practical, whatever is safe. So morality has gone down so much in China. You hear about all the fake products that they make over there. That's not how Chinese people were. And if you go to Japan, you go to Taiwan, and even Hong Kong, people still preserve some of their traditional beliefs, and there were all these ethical things and morals that were weaved into society for thousands of years until the last few decades. Mm-hmm. But all of that is unfortunately starting to disintegrate in today's China.
It's terrifying, especially with what we're seeing with the Belt Road Initiative. Yes. And they're making great headway, and they've made great headway, over 2021 to 2020 through 2024, getting down there to Panama through I want to say the Bering Straits, but that's not it. There's an area where they were bringing in all of these immigrants. How did that make you feel when all of this is going on? And we know that there are Chinese nationals who are here, probably from the People's Liberation Army, that they are for China, the CCP. And I want to keep making that distinction because, like you say, the Chinese people are different from the government.
Yes.
And how did that make you feel? To me, as an American, it made me feel very nervous, and still does, because we haven't caught them all.
Yeah, and actually that leads into how Shen was created, in fact. So in 2006, a group of artists came together in New York to create this new performing arts company with the goal of reviving our real, authentic culture, and also raise awareness of the religious persecution that's still happening in China today. And also to, I guess, to help uplift the world, to find our common humanity, but also to offer the prospect of, salvation through elevating the people's spiritual realm. That's, I think it's been quite a journey and has been so well received. But our journey has been very difficult from the beginning because we have been on the, a thorn on the side of the CCP. So they have made it very, very difficult for us. And we were a very vulnerable group compared to the largest totalitarian regime on earth. Mm-hmm. So from the get-go, they've tried to pressure local officials and theaters to cancel our shows. And we have letters and emails of those. And they've even tried to slash the tires of our performers' buses to physically harm us. And in recent years, we have seen a lot of bomb threats to rape our female performers and kill them, threats of mass shootings at our headquarters. We receive those on a weekly basis. So it has taken a lot of courage to do what we do. On top of that, they've been spreading a lot of disinformation online. They're paying YouTube influencers, for example, to make videos against us, to smear us. The allegations are so far from how we are, who we are. They've never seen us. They don't really know us, but they're doing this, unfortunately. Like, I don't know, for profit or whatever the motivation is. I'm talking about the people who are not the CCP itself, but somehow have been doing some things like that. So
they're probably getting paid to do that, just like all the protesters that we see rise up, anti-Semitism and other anti-American protests are being paid by somebody. I know all the anti-American a lot of it is through George Soros and people like that, but mostly him, and he's paying the money, and he's being funded, from what I understand, from Venezuela, I think, or Argentina. The government is helping him to bring us down. But that's another story. So yes, please go on with it. They're probably getting paid.
But anyway, so for the last 25, 26 years, quarter century, the practitioners of Dafa, millions of us around the world, have tried to do everything possible to expose the evil nature of the CCP, so that people can understand why they've been doing what they have to our faith. A lot of people have participated in projects and organizations and companies started by Falun Gong practitioners for these purposes. And Shen, like as I mentioned, is one of them. And we have become a very powerful voice actually on the world stage. Our organization philosophy is sort of like something like artistic excellence rooted in spiritual development. So if you've been to a Shen performance, you'll see it's amazing in terms of not, just entertainment entertainment value itself is very amazing because of the Chinese classical dance and how expressive and athletic it is. It's a very expressive form with a lot of tumblings and flips and turns.
Mhm.
A lot of what people call acrobatic, but
Yes.
actually it's it comes from the same traditions of Chinese traditions. So a lot, like the tumblings in Olympic competitions. So it's highly entertaining, not just athletically, but also in terms of the way our dancers, excuse me, some of the more very expressive, lyrical moves and formations. It's just really stunning. And you may have seen some of the ads out there that's very colorful. But if you go to a show, we usually have about 16 dances in a show, and each dance has a different set of costumes, and they're very vibrant and colorful. And because we want people to go away with a sense of positivity and hope, and so it's reflected in not just the stories in themselves, but also the lighting, the costumes, and the music, of course. And our music is also very special. We have unique blend of traditional Chinese instruments and Western classical instruments. So the sound that we're producing from that blend is very memorable and special. And we're not doing this just to be different. We're actually trying to sometimes, for example, if we blend an oboe and the erhu together and the resulting sound, it's just something that gives a lot of warmth, but also it has a brighter tone than the usual erhu sound. So a lot of people actually are very moved by our music. And we always tour, our dance program always tour with a live orchestra, which is also very unique in today's world, right? Not many
It's wonderful.
dance companies, still use live orchestra anymore. But we really want to preserve that, even though it's more costly to do what we do, but it's more important to preserve these classical traditions.
That's what, and so you're the conductor of one of the groups. Is that correct?
Yeah. So we have 8 performance touring troops, and each has its own orchestra. I'm conductor of one of them.
And do they shift you all around? Like one year you might do the United States tour, and one year, because when I spoke with Lishai, he was saying he really didn't know where he was going to be because you're put in different places. Well, with 8 troops, goodness gracious, you've got the globe covered.
That's right. So every year we may be designated to go to a different part of the world, but I pretty much, since I've been there since day one, have been to pretty much all the cities that Shen has toured to.
Okay. Oh wow, that's exciting. I'm really hoping that I get to go to one next year.
Yes, you should. Let me know. Our tour, every tour usually starts right after Christmas and until early May of the following year.
Okay.
So stay in touch, and I'll let you know next time we tour to your city.
Yeah, close by. How many productions do you do? Because when I get the Epoch Times, and on the back I can see all of the different dates usually, but I've never counted them. Is it 8 or is it 10?
Yeah, we have 8 troops. So, for example, last year 1 troop went to Asia, 4 went to Europe, and 3 was in primarily in the United States. But we also kind of rotate. One group may be in Europe for a couple months and then come back to the States for the other 2 or 3 months. So, and we also went to South America. So we have a web page with all the cities and dates listed that you can check it out.
Okay, so in the United States, Is it just different every year, like maybe 10 performances or?
And oh no, we every year, I think the last couple of years we have a total of over 800 performances
In the
around the
United
world.
States?
No, sorry, around the world.
Okay.
In the United
Okay.
States, probably half of that, I would guess, something around that. So
Wow.
about 400 in the United States.
Wow. So
For
you hit
example,
a lot of
in
cities.
yeah, in New York, well, we have one group that was in the state of California for pretty much most of the tour, 3 or 4 months, just perform from one city to the next for, I think, maybe 4 months. Another group, Texas alone has probably 50, 60 performances. And
Wow.
New York has maybe around 20 performances. So larger cities, we have more shows scheduled, but we also try to get to some of the smaller cities.
You need a lot of dancers and a lot of musicians because I'm sure you need backup people just in case somebody is sick, especially the dancers. They have to be ready to fill in.
Yes, they're really good. Occasionally, if somebody suddenly is not feeling too well or got some injuries, they're able to change their formation just within, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes to fill, to do a different formation or, excuse me, or fill in for somebody else's role. They're able to do that. I'm just really amazed. And
I am too.
for musicians as well. Yeah, we are able to fill in for somebody else. And even if it's a different instrument, let's say that instrument cannot play, then other instrument can, fill in the role to play that solo for them.
Yeah, those are the things you have to be concerned about is the musicians. So that's a lot of logistics going on. And then touring the country means that you're getting on buses or whatever transportation that you're on. You mentioned the buses and the slashing of the tires. I think that made headlines. I know it was in the Epic Times. So I don't know where else that was talked about anyhow. So do you have any words of wisdom or warning for the American people? Because personally, I noticed it was like many Americans had no idea. They don't see how Marxism has infiltrated pretty much every institution that we have. And they've just been chipping away slowly. But from somebody who has seen both sides and has had family and friends affected by tyranny. Do you have any words of wisdom?
Personally, I think having faith, my faith has given me a lot of, sorry.
It's okay.
My faith has given me a lot of strength inside. Oh, what's happening? Sorry, give me a second.
It's okay. Good. I'm glad you had something to drink.
Yeah, my family has given me and my family a lot of strength to face anything that comes our way, whether it be the persecution or just other tribulations and things that happen in life. At our most difficult time in our life, like when my brother was tortured in a labor camp, it was just absolutely excruciating. Day after day, not knowing what was happening to him. Is he still alive? I remember I managed to get my parents here to the States because I already became a naturalized citizen at that time.
Okay.
So my parents and I started to reach out to media, local media or whoever was willing to listen to us and tell them about what was going on. So to do that, it took a lot of courage, and it was also our faith that was giving us that courage and the confidence and guiding us to do the right thing. So it sustained us in the most difficult time, and also I think it has sustained us to join the forces that start Shen Yun, like what we've been doing this last 25, 26 years. So I think when Marxism or whatever forces out there that are trying to take faith away from people, I think it's, for me, it's a force that is really doing harm to the world, to this world. And with the Shen Yun show, for example, we don't seek to convert anybody, but we want to share the beauty of our culture, the beauty, the wisdom, the profundity of our spiritual heritage, because we think it's actually, and it's proven that it resonates with everybody. You know, people from any part of the world, they resonated with it.
Yeah.
That's why we have grown so much. We're so well received in Europe in the last several years, and our tickets were sold out like a year in advance. I think because people really resonate with that, because because the universal values and the wholesome values and truths, that helps everybody and helps humanity to come together and not be so divisive.
Yep. And we need that, because that's what Marxism does. It starts dividing people, and it puts people in groups, and then it just kind of lets this humanity of very polemic do its work. And then once those are divided, then they pick, another group, and they divide that group.
Exactly.
It's intersectionality. It is the term for it. Yeah, it's very dangerous. Okay, well, those are good things for us to watch out for, and also, I guess, being silenced.
Yes.
We need to hang on to our freedom of speech. That's incredibly important. Our First Amendment is just priceless for us, and we can't let that go.
Yes.
We can't. This is happening, like I said, everywhere. I had a South African pastor reach out to me and let me know that to pray for them, because they are being threatened, and the state wants to run their religion. They want to know what they're saying. They want them to register with the state, and that's the beginning. They can't let that happen. They have to push back. So
yeah, from what I gather, the United States is the country that actually offers the best religious protection compared to most countries.
Yeah.
And that is something we must not take for granted, and really cherish and safeguard that, and make sure we don't lose it. As a first generation immigrant, I so much appreciate this country. I think it has given us the freedom to, for example, in the case of Shen Yun, to create a company like that, to be able to thrive, to be able to exercise our free speech and raise awareness of the terrible atrocities that are still happening in China, and to share with people our beautiful culture and spiritual heritage. I'm so thankful that we can only do that in this in the U.S. versus in China. It's just not possible. So I'm very thankful for that. Yeah.
Well, I'm just glad you're here and your family's here. And I'm really grateful and honored that you would take time to come onto my Faith and Culture show and talk to the audiences who tune in. So
thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Keep doing what you're doing. And I have below the website for Shen Yun. Is there any other way that you want people to reach out to either you or your efforts or whatever? Or is that good enough?
Well, shenyun.com is a great website. We also have a shenyun.org, O-R.org. It also has a lot of information about our company, about our faith, about our fight. So, yeah, we would really appreciate people learning more about us, learning who we really are, instead of some of the noises that you may hear from certain media, which also has been fed this information by the CCP, unfortunately. So find out who we are, and hopefully we can all work together to end those problems.
Yes, I agree. It's going to take all of us pushing back against this darkness and this evil. So, Ying, Chen, thank you. I hope I get to meet you in person.
I hope so
And
too.
I do. I will keep a lookout when your schedule comes out. So
Yeah.
thank you again.
Love to meet you in person, Catherine. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care. Thank you.
You too.
God bless you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.